The neon sign of Crossroads Diner flickered against the Arizona twilight, casting alternating shadows of red and blue across the cracked asphalt of the parking lot. Inside, the evening rush was just beginning to slow, the clatter of plates and murmur of conversations settling into a comfortable rhythm. Lisa Mitchell moved between tables with practiced efficiency, her brown ponytail swinging with each step, the ties of her white apron double knotted at her slim waist. At 28, Lisa had the kind of face that revealed nothing while observing everything. Her brown eyes, alert and intelligent, scanned the diner, constantly noting details most would miss. The businessman in the corner, who always left exactly 15% tip. The elderly couple by the window who shared a single slice of pie. The off-duty cop nursing his third coffee. In another life, this attention to detail had served her well in the octagon. Tonight it warned her of trouble before the door even opened. The rumble came first. Deep, throaty engine sounds that made the windows vibrate slightly. Then silence. 5 seconds. 10. The bell above the door jangled violently as it was pushed open with unnecessary force. Conversation died. Forks paused midway to mouths. All eyes turned toward the entrance. They entered like they owned the place. 6 men in leather cuts bearing the snarling wolf emblem of the Iron Wolves Motorcycle Club. Their boots left dirt marks on the freshly mopped floor. Their presence filled the diner with the scent of leather motor oil and something more primal. Fear. At their center walked Marcus Razor Kane, chapter president of the Iron Wolves. At 42, Kane cut an imposing figure. 6'2" shoulders like a bull with salt and pepper hair, cropped short on the sides but longer on top. A jagged scar ran from his right temple to the corner of his mouth, giving him a permanent half-sneer. His arms, exposed by a sleeveless leather vest, displayed a roadmap of tattoos telling stories of prison time, military service, and biker brotherhood. Lisa kept wiping the counter, her movements unhurried, as she watched them claim the largest booth. Most of the staff had suddenly found urgent business in the kitchen. Only Earl, the 68-year-old cook with hands gnarled from decades of boxing and cooking, peered through the service window with narrowed eyes. "Your section, Lisa," he said quietly. She nodded once, tucking her order pad into her apron pocket. As she approached their table, she measured her steps, keeping her breathing steady. 6 pairs of eyes tracked her movement. Some held amusement, others something darker. "Welcome to Crossroads," she said, voice neutral. "What can I get you gentlemen tonight?" Kane looked at her, then really looked at her, his steel gray eyes lingering on her face with unsettling intensity. "Coffee, black, for everyone." His voice was unexpectedly smooth, like expensive whiskey with gravel at the bottom. "Coming right up." Lisa returned with a tray of steaming mugs. She set them down one by one, aware of the tension coiling around the table. The bikers were unnaturally quiet, communicating with glances and subtle nods. She'd seen this behavior before. Predators assessing, waiting. When she placed the last mug in front of Kane, his hand shot out, fingers wrapping around her wrist. Not painfully tight, but a clear display of power. A test. "You're new," he said. "Don't remember seeing you here last time we came through." Lisa kept her expression neutral, neither pulling away nor yielding. "Been here about 8 months. Kane's lips curved slightly. "You don't seem scared." "Should I be?" The question hung in the air. One of the other bikers, a mountain of a man with a beard down to his chest, chuckled darkly. Kane released her wrist, his eyes never leaving hers. "We'll need menus." The next 20 minutes passed in tense routine. Lisa took their orders, delivered their food-refilled coffees. The other patrons gave the booth a wide berth, some paying quickly and leaving. The bikers grew louder, more animated, feeding off the discomfort they created. It happened when Lisa was clearing their plates. Kane's second in command, a wiry man with teardrop tattoos by his eyes, stuck out his boot deliberately. Lisa saw it coming, but had nowhere to maneuver with her hands full. She stumbled, dishes crashing to the floor in a cacophony of breaking ceramic and clattering silverware. The diner went silent. All eyes turned to the scene. The bikers erupted in laughter. "Clumsy bitch," said Teardrop, loud enough for everyone to hear. Lisa knelt to gather the broken pieces, her face flushed not with embarrassment, but with controlled anger. Kane watched her, something like appreciation in his gaze. He raised his coffee mug, finding it empty. "Another round, sweetheart. Since you seem to be having trouble keeping things together." More laughter from the table. Lisa stood, broken dishes balanced in her hands, and nodded once. She turned toward the kitchen when Kane's hand shot out again, this time, grabbing the strings of her apron and yanking hard, pulling her off balance and back toward the table. "I said more coffee," he growled, his voice no longer smooth but rough with implied threat. The other bikers watched, anticipating her fear feeding on it. What happened next occurred so quickly that later witnesses would disagree on the sequence of events. Lisa pivoted her body, moving with the fluid grace of someone with thousands of hours of training. The dishes clattered back to the floor as she spun her hands, grasping her apron strings before Kane could release them. In one smooth motion, she looped the apron around his thick neck and pulled tight, leaning down so her lips were inches from his ear. "I know about the jewelry store robbery last month," she whispered, her voice so low only Kane could hear. "I have video of you and your boys, clear as day." Kane's face, previously amused, drained of color. His hands, which had come up reflexively to the fabric at his throat, stilled. The other bikers half rose from their seats, uncertain what was happening, but recognizing the sudden shift in power. "Now," Lisa continued, her voice still barely audible, "you're going to pay your bill, leave a generous tip, and walk out of here without causing any more trouble. Because if anything happens to anyone in this diner, that video goes straight to the Arizona State Police." She released the apron with deliberate slowness and stepped back, her expression calm as she looked around the table. "Can I get anyone dessert?" The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Kane's men looked to him for direction, hands hovering near concealed weapons. But Kane himself seemed to have undergone a transformation. The dangerous swagger was replaced with calculating stillness. "Just the check," he said finally, his voice controlled. Lisa nodded and walked away, aware of every eye in the place following her. Earl met her at the kitchen door, concern etched in the lines of his weathered face. "You okay, girl?" he asked quietly. "Fine," Lisa replied, her voice steady even as adrenaline coursed through her veins. "Just another night at Crossroads." 20 minutes later, the Iron Wolves were gone, leaving behind a spotless table and a $100 tip on an $80 check. The atmosphere in the diner slowly returned to normal, though conversations remained hushed, occasionally punctuated by excited retellings of what had happened. After her shift ended at 11, Lisa changed out of her uniform in the cramped employee bathroom. She examined herself in the mirror, noting the slight tremble in her hands now that the danger had passed. From her backpack, she removed a small, worn wooden box. Inside lay a cell phone, not her regular one, but an older model she kept for one specific purpose. She scrolled through the gallery until she found it crystal clear footage of Marcus Kane and 3 other Iron Wolves breaking into Hartman's fine jewelry 4 weeks ago. The timestamp showed 2:14 a.m. Their faces were clearly visible despite partial bandana coverings. The video had been shot from an unusual angle, high up and across the street. Lisa had not been in Riverdale by accident. She had not taken the job at Crossroads by chance. For 8 months, she had been laying groundwork, gathering intelligence, waiting for the perfect moment. Tonight was just the opening move in a game that had been years in the making. She tucked the phone back into the box and the box into her backpack. As she exited through the rear door of the diner, the cool night air carried the distant rumble of motorcycles. She paused, scanning the darkness before walking quickly to her modest Toyota Corolla, parked under a streetlight. Earl was waiting for her, leaning against the hood of her car, his breath visible in the chilly night air. "You want to tell me what really happened in there?" he asked, his voice gruff with a concern. Lisa hesitated. Earl Jenkins had been kind to her from her first day, taking her under his wing, showing her the ropes. More than that, he'd recognized something in her that others missed. A fighter. A survivor. Over months of early mornings prepping the diner and late nights closing up, they developed a bond built on respect and unasked questions. "Just putting a bully in his place," she said finally. Earl's eyes, still sharp despite the Parkinson's that sometimes made his hands shake when he wasn't cooking, studied her face. That was more than standing up to a bully. That was someone who knew exactly who she was dealing with. He paused, then added more softly, "And who knows how to handle herself in a dangerous situation." Lisa looked away, unwilling to lie but unable to share the whole truth. "I've dealt with men like Kane before." "I don't doubt it," Earl said. "But the Iron Wolves aren't just any biker gang. They run half this town. Kane has connections with the mayor, the police chief. Whatever you're involved in," he trailed off, shaking his head. "I appreciate the concern," Lisa said, touching his arm gently. but I can handle myself. Earl sighed, pushing away from the car. That's what worries me. You shouldn't have to. He started to walk away, then turned back. Be careful, Lisa. Kane doesn't forget, and he doesn't forgive. After Earl's taillights disappeared around the corner, Lisa sat in her car for a long moment, key in the ignition, but engine silent. She checked her rearview mirror, repeatedly scanned the parking lot, the road, the buildings across the street. Finally satisfied she wasn't being watched, she started the car and drove to her small apartment on the edge of town. The apartment was exactly as she'd left it that morning. Single bed, neatly made, sparse furnishings, few personal touches. She'd learned long ago not to get too attached to places or things, or people. Lisa moved through her security routine with practiced efficiency, checking windows, testing the door lock, sliding a wooden dowel into the track of the sliding glass door that led to a small balcony overlooking a scrubby patch of desert. Only when she was certain everything was secure did she allow herself to relax slightly. From beneath her mattress, she pulled out a worn leather journal. Opening it revealed not diary entries, but meticulous notes, photographs, newspaper clippings, a timeline carefully constructed over years. Names connected by lines and arrows. At the center of this web, a photograph of Lisa herself, younger in fighting gear, her arm raised in victory inside an MMA octagon. Beside it, a photo of a handsome man with cruel eyes. Mike the Destroyer Thompson, former MMA champion, and her ex-boyfriend. Surrounding these images were others, newspaper articles about fixed fights, photographs of Thompson with known criminals, and more recently, surveillance photos of the Iron Wolves and their activities in Riverdale. Lisa added new notes about tonight's encounter, her handwriting neat and precise, despite the lingering adrenaline in her system. This wasn't just about a robbery. It wasn't even just about Thompson. It was about a system that protected powerful men while crushing anyone who stood in their way. It was about justice long denied. A soft knock at her door froze Lisa mid-thought. She closed the journal, silently sliding it back under the mattress. From the bedside drawer, she removed a small caliber pistol, holding it low against her thigh as she approached the door. "Who is it?" she called, standing to the side of the door, rather than in front of it. "It's just me," came a familiar voice. Eleanor Miller, the 76-year-old owner of Crossroads Diner. "Sorry to bother you so late, dear." Lisa checked through the peephole to confirm, then tucked the gun into the back of her jeans before opening the door. Eleanor stood in the hallway, tiny and bird-like in a floral house dress, her white hair in curlers. She lived in the apartment directly above Lisa's. "Everything okay, Ms. Miller?" Lisa asked, careful to keep her voice casual. "Oh, I'm fine, dear," Eleanor said, waving away the concern. "But I thought you should know. There's a motorcycle parked across the street. Been there about 20 minutes. Just sitting there with the engine off." Lisa's pulse quickened. "Did you see who was on it?" Eleanor shook her head. "Too dark. But after what happened at the diner tonight..." She trailed off, concern evident in her faded blue eyes. "Everyone in the building would have heard about the incident by now. News traveled fast in Riverdale." "Thank you for letting me know," Lisa said. "I'm sure it's nothing to worry about." "Well, I called the police anyway," Eleanor said with the determination of someone who had seen too much in her long life to take chances. "They said they'd send someone by to check." She patted Lisa's arm. "You stood up for yourself tonight. Not many would have the courage. My Henry would have liked you." Henry Miller, Eleanor's late husband, had been a Golden Gloves boxer in his youth, much like Earl. After Eleanor left, Lisa moved to the window, carefully peering through a narrow gap in the blinds. Sure enough, a motorcycle was parked under a streetlight across the road. A Harley-Davidson customized with the distinctive wolf emblem just visible on the gas tank. The rider sat motionless, face obscured by a helmet, watching her building. Lisa's mind raced through possibilities. Kane sending a message, gathering intelligence, planning something, or maybe just trying to frighten her. She considered her options, decided on a course of action. From her closet, she retrieved a small backpack containing essentials, cash, a burner phone, a change of clothes, basic toiletries. A go bag prepared long ago for situations exactly like this. She changed into dark jeans, a black hooded sweatshirt, and running shoes. The gun went into a concealed holster at her lower back. Rather than leave through the front door, where she might be seen, Lisa slipped out onto her small balcony. The drop to the ground was about 12 feet. In her previous life, such a jump would have been routine. Her right knee, with its surgical scars and titanium reinforcements, protested at the memory. But she'd kept in shape despite the career-ending injury. Kept training. Kept preparing. She lowered herself over the railing hanging by her fingertips to reduce the distance, then dropped silently to the ground, bending her knees to absorb the impact. A flash of pain shot through her right leg, but she ignored it, staying in a crouch as she scanned the area. No sign of movement, no indication she'd been spotted. Moving from shadow to shadow, Lisa circled around the back of the apartment complex, working her way toward where the motorcycle was parked. If Kane wanted to play intimidation games, she'd show him she could play too. The element of surprise would be hers. As she approached, staying concealed behind parked cars, she could make out more details. The rider was large with the broad shoulders characteristic of Kane, but something was off about the posture. This person sat differently on the bike. More upright, less at ease. Lisa drew closer, moving silently until she was directly behind the motorcycle. In one fluid movement, she emerged from the shadows, gun drawn, but held low. "Enjoying the view?" she asked coldly. The rider started, clearly surprised, then slowly raised both hands to remove the helmet. Lisa's finger tensed on the trigger, then relaxed slightly as the helmet came off, revealing not Marcus Kane, but a woman. Early 30s with short, spiky blonde hair and sharp features. "You must be Lisa," the woman said, her voice carrying a slight rasp. "Kane said you were dangerous. Didn't mention you were a ghost." Lisa kept the gun steady. "Who are you?" She. "Vex, vice president of the Iron Wolves." She gestured to the patch on her leather cut. "Kane sent me with a message." "He could have called the diner." Vex smiled without humor. "This isn't that kind of message." She reached slowly toward an inside pocket of her vest. "Mind if I—" Lisa nodded, once gun still ready. Vex removed an envelope and held it out. When Lisa didn't move to take it, Vex sighed and placed it on the gas tank of the motorcycle. "Kane wants to meet, alone, tomorrow night. Details are in there." Vex studied Lisa with open curiosity. "You've got him spooked. That's not easy to do." "Why would I agree to meet him anywhere?" "Because you've got something he wants, and he's got information you need." Vex put her helmet back on. "Your choice. But if I were you, I'd hear what he has to say." She started the motorcycle, the engine roaring to life in the quiet night. The wolves aren't the biggest predators in these woods, Lisa Mitchell. Or should I say Sarah Reynolds? The sound of the name she had abandoned years ago hit Lisa like a physical blow. Her real name. The name from before. Before Thompson. Before her career ended. Before she reinvented herself and began planning her revenge. Vex revved the engine. "Think about it," she called over the noise, then peeled away, leaving Lisa standing alone in the street, gun now hanging limply at her side. The envelope contained a single sheet of paper with an address and time: Black Ridge Overlook, 11 p.m. Below the information was a handwritten note. "Come alone. We need to talk about Mike Thompson and what really happened in Vegas." Lisa's blood ran cold. Vegas, where everything had fallen apart 3 years ago. The championship fight that had ended her career. The night she discovered Thompson had taken a dive for the Iron Wolves betting operation. The beginning of the end. She barely remembered returning to her apartment. Her mind was racing, recalculating, reassessing. Kane knowing her real name changed things. It meant he'd done his research after their encounter. Or more worryingly, he'd known who she was all along. Sleep was out of the question now. Lisa spent the night reviewing her journal, checking and rechecking the connections she'd mapped out. By dawn, she had formed a new plan. She would meet Kane, but on her terms. The confrontation had been inevitable from the moment she arrived in Riverdale. Perhaps it was better to face it head-on than to keep looking over her shoulder. Morning brought no clarity, only a gritty-eyed determination. Lisa arrived at Crossroads for her 6 a.m. shift, looking outwardly normal, though Earl's concerned glances suggested she hadn't entirely hidden the strain of the sleepless night. "Heard you had a visitor last night," Earl said quietly as they prepared the grill and coffee machines for opening. Lisa looked up sharply. "How did you know that small town?" Earl shrugged, wincing slightly as his Parkinson's caused a momentary tremor in his left hand. "Eleanor called me, worried about you." "It was nothing," Lisa said, focusing on filling sugar dispensers. "Just one of the wolves trying to scare me." Earl was silent for a long moment, his weathered hands stilling on the grill he was cleaning. "Lisa," he said finally, I've known Marcus Kane for 20 years. Watched him grow from a hothead kid to the man he is now. He's dangerous, yes, but he's not. He seemed to struggle for words. He's not just what he seems. Lisa stopped what she was doing, studying Earl's face. What are you saying? I'm saying there's history here you might not understand. The Iron Wolves cane this town. It's complicated. You're defending him after what happened last night. Earl shook his head. What defending? Just saying there are layers. Kane could have done a lot worse than pull your apron strings if he wanted to make a point. He met her eyes directly. Whatever you're involved in, whatever brought you to Riverdale, be careful about making assumptions. Not everything is black and white. The conversation was cut short as Eleanor arrived to unlock the front doors, but Earl's words lingered in Lisa's mind throughout the morning rush. The diner was busier than usual, locals coming in under the pretense of breakfast, but really hoping to catch a glimpse of the waitress who had stood up to the Iron Wolves. Around 10:30, when the breakfast crowd had thinned, the bell above the door jangled. Lisa looked up from wiping down a table to see Marcus Kane standing alone in the entrance. Unlike the previous night, he wasn't wearing his leather-cut just jeans and a black button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing intricate tattoos on his forearms. Without the backing of his club, he seemed almost normal. Almost. The diner fell silent as Kane scanned the room, his eyes finally landing on Lisa. He walked directly to the counter and took a seat. Lisa approached coffee pot in hand, her face a careful mask. "Coffee?" she asked as though he were any other customer. Kane nodded, watching as she filled a mug and placed it in front of him. "We need to talk," he said quietly. "I got your message," Lisa replied, keeping her voice low. "Blackridge Overlook, 11 tonight." "That's not why I'm here." Kane glanced around the diner, aware of the eyes on them. "Your apartment was searched last night and after Vex left." Lisa's grip tightened on the coffee pot. "What?" "Not by us," Kane clarified. "Men in suits, professional job. They're looking for the video." Lisa's mind raced. If Kane was telling the truth, someone else knew about the video. Someone connected enough to find out her address and orchestrate a break-in while she was away. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked, suspicion evident in her tone. Kane took a sip of his coffee before answering. "Because whatever you think you know about that robbery, whatever game you think you're playing, you're in way over your head." His gray eyes held hers. "And because Earl seems to think you're worth warning." At that moment, Earl emerged from the kitchen, nodding once to Kane in what seemed like acknowledgement of a long history. The older man moved to the end of the counter, close enough to intervene if needed, but giving them space to talk. "I don't need your warnings or your protection," Lisa said firmly. "No." Kane raised an eyebrow. "Then you already know about the network, about their connection to Thompson, about why they really want that video." Lisa struggled to keep her expression neutral, but something must have shown in her face because Kane nodded slightly, as if confirming a suspicion. "That's what I thought," he said. "You've stumbled into something bigger than a jewelry store robbery, Sarah. Something bigger than your vendetta against Thompson." "Don't call me that," Lisa hissed. "That name doesn't exist anymore." "It does to the people looking for you." Kane stood, leaving a $20 bill beside his barely touched coffee. "Blackridge Overlook, 11. Come alone and I'll tell you what you're really up against." He moved toward the door, then paused, looking back at her. "And bring the video. You're going to need leverage where we're going." After Kane left, Lisa braced herself against the counter, mind spinning with new information and possibilities. Earl approached, his expression grave. "What did he want?" the older man asked. "To warn me, apparently," Lisa replied, still processing. "Someone broke into my apartment last night." Earl's face tightened with concern. "Are you going to meet him?" Lisa hesitated, then nodded once. "I need to know what he knows." "Then I'm coming with you." "No," Lisa said firmly. "This is my fight." Earl's weathered face creased in a sad smile. "That's where you're wrong, girl. Some fights are too big for one person." He glanced toward the door where Kane had exited. Even Kane figured that out eventually. That evening, Lisa returned to her apartment to find it exactly as Earl had described. At first glance, nothing seemed disturbed, but to her trained eye, the signs were clear. The slightly misaligned books on her shelf, the bed made with hospital corners instead of her usual quick tuck, the closet items rearranged just enough to notice. A professional job indeed. They'd found nothing because the journal and the phone were with her, secured in the locker at the bus station after Earl's warning that morning. But the violation of her space left her shaken in a way the confrontation with Kane had not. As dusk fell over Riverdale, Lisa prepared for the meeting at Blackridge Overlook. She dressed practically in dark jeans boots and a jacket with interior pockets. The gun was holstered at her lower back, easily accessible. In her pocket, the phone with the video. Not the original, of course, but a copy that would serve her purpose. Earl called as she was leaving. "Change my mind," his gruff voice came through the speaker. "You're right, this is your show. But I'll be at the diner if you need backup. One call, that's all it takes." "Thanks, Earl," Lisa said, genuinely touched by his concern. "I'll be careful." Blackridge Overlook was a scenic viewpoint about 15 miles outside of town, popular with tourists for its panoramic vista of the valley and the mountains beyond. At night, it offered a clear view of Riverdale's lights spread out below like fallen stars. It was also, Lisa noted, with tactical awareness, isolated and difficult to approach without being seen. She arrived 30 minutes early, parking her car a quarter-mile down the road and approaching on foot. The overlook consisted of a circular paved area with a stone barrier at the edge of the cliff and a few picnic tables set back from the view. A single motorcycle was already parked there, Kane's custom Harley. He stood at the barrier, looking out over the valley, his back to her approach. Either supremely confident or supremely foolish. Lisa kept to the shadows until she was certain he was alone, then deliberately scuffed her boot on the pavement to announce her presence. Kane didn't turn. "Right on time," he said, still gazing out at the view. "You checked for a trap. Smart." "Why are we here, Kane?" Lisa asked, stopping several feet behind him, position carefully chosen to give herself room to maneuver if necessary. Now he turned moonlight, catching the scar on his face, making it look deeper, more savage. "We're here because you have something I've been looking for a very long time, and because you're in danger whether you realize it or not." "The video," Lisa said. Kane shook his head slightly. "Not just the video, the evidence it contains." He gestured for her to join him at the barrier. When she hesitated, he sighed. "If I wanted to hurt you, I wouldn't have chosen the most visible spot for 50 miles. Lisa cautiously moved forward until she stood beside him, both looking out over the twinkling lights of Riverdale below. 3 years ago in Vegas, Kane began, his voice low and measured. Mike Thompson took a dive in the championship fight against Diaz. The betting patterns that night made certain people very rich. You were there. You saw something. "I saw Thompson throw the fight," Lisa confirmed, "but that's not why I came to Riverdale." "No," Kane turned to look at her directly. "Then why target the Iron Wolves? Why keep tabs on our movements for months? Why arrange to work at the one diner we frequent when we're in town?" Lisa tensed, realizing how much Kane knew about her activities. "You knew who I was all along." "Not at first," Kane admitted. "But when one of my guys recognized you from your fighting days, I got curious. Started looking into why a former MMA fighter with a promising career would suddenly disappear, then resurface as a waitress in Riverdale of all places." "You still haven't told me why we're here," Lisa pressed. Kane was silent for a moment, seeming to weigh his next words carefully. "What if I told you the Iron Wolves aren't what you think, that the jewelry store robbery wasn't a robbery at all but an evidence-gathering operation? That Thompson's fixed fight in Vegas was connected to something much bigger called the network? I'd say you're trying to justify criminal behavior with conspiracy theories," Lisa replied, though uncertainty crept into her voice. Kane reached slowly into his jacket, telegraphing his movements to avoid alarming her. He withdrew a folded piece of paper and handed it to her. "This was delivered to my garage 2 days after the robbery. It's why we hit Hartman's in the first place." Lisa unfolded the paper using the moonlight to read what appeared to be a detailed invoice. Jewelry pieces, values, and most interestingly, a delivery address, Pierce Enterprises, Denver. "Maxwell Pierce," Kane explained, seeing her recognition of the name. "CCO of Pierce Enterprises, major donor to political campaigns, and the man who runs the network in 3 states. The jewelry store was laundering money for them, disguising cash payments as high-end sales. And you expect me to believe you robbed them out of some sense of justice?" Lisa's voice dripped skepticism. "I expect you to look at the evidence and draw your own conclusions," Kane replied. "The same way you did when you realized Thompson threw that fight." A new voice cut through the night, causing both of them to spin around. That's quite enough, Mr. Kane. Standing at the edge of the parking area was an immaculately dressed man in his 50s, flanked by two larger men with the unmistakable bulge of shoulder holsters under their jackets. Mayor Richard Coleman of Riverdale, his politician's smile firmly in place despite the late hour and unusual circumstances. Mayor Kane acknowledged his posture, shifting subtly into a defensive stance. You're a long way from City Hall. And you're a long way from your garage, Coleman replied smoothly, then turned his attention to Lisa. Ms. Mitchell, or should I say Ms. Reynolds, I believe you have something that belongs to us. The night air at Black Ridge Overlook grew suddenly colder as Mayor Coleman and his men approached. Lisa maintained her position beside Kane, calculating distances and angles, mapping potential escape routes in her mind. Nothing here belongs to you, she said, her voice steady despite the rapid beat of her heart. Coleman's smile remained fixed, political and practiced, but his eyes hardened. The video, Ms. Reynolds, the one you've been using to blackmail Mr. Kane, it contains sensitive information that could be misinterpreted by the public. Blackmail. Lisa glanced at Kane, whose face remained impassive. Is that what he told you? Coleman gestured casually to one of his men, who moved to position himself between Lisa and the path back to her car. Mr. Kane has been quite cooperative since we explained the situation to him. Now it's your turn to cooperate. Kane's voice cut through the tension, low and deliberate. You shouldn't have come here, Richard. This isn't going to play out how you think. The mayor's polished veneer cracked slightly, revealing irritation beneath. I've indulged your little motorcycle club for years, Marcus. Look the other way when I should have shut you down. That earns me some latitude. No, Kane replied, shifting subtly to stand more directly at Lisa's side. It earns you nothing. Coleman sighed theatrically. I was hoping we could handle this civilly. He nodded to his men, who reached inside their jackets. The video, Ms. Reynolds. Now. Lisa tensed, ready to move, but Kane's hand brushed against hers in warning. He'd spotted something she hadn't. Following his gaze, she noticed shadows moving at the perimeter of the overlook. Leather-clad figures emerging silently from the darkness surrounding the mayor's group. The Iron Wolves had arrived. Coleman noticed too late. By the time he turned to look behind him, 7 bikers had materialized from the shadows, led by Vex, whose spiky blonde hair gleamed in the moonlight. Evening, Mayor, Vex said pleasantly, though her posture was anything but relaxed. Lovely night for a view, isn't it? Coleman's face flushed with anger. This is a mistake, Marcus. A serious mistake. The mistake, Kane replied calmly, was sending those suits to search her apartment. That crossed a line. Lisa looked at Kane sharply. You knew they would follow me here. I knew they'd been watching you, Kane corrected, just like they've been watching us since the Hartman job. One of Coleman's men, panicking at being surrounded, drew his weapon. In an instant, Vex was behind him, a knife pressed to his kidney. Bad idea, she whispered in his ear. The man froze, then carefully lowered his gun. Take their weapons, Kane ordered. 2 wolves moved forward efficiently, disarming Coleman's men and patting down the mayor himself. This is assault, Coleman sputtered, as his expensive suit was manhandled. Kidnapping a public official. Kane shook his head. Nobody's kidnapping anyone, Richard. We're just having a conversation about the network Maxwell Pierce and why you're so interested in a video of a jewelry store robbery. At the mention of Pierce's name, Coleman went very still, his politician's mask cracking completely. You have no idea what you're dealing with, he said, voice barely above a whisper. But I do, Kane replied. He turned to Lisa. Show him the video. Lisa hesitated, then reached into her pocket for the phone. She pulled up the video file, the screen illuminating her face in the darkness as she held it toward Coleman. The mayor stared at the footage, his expression shifting from anger to calculation. That means nothing, he said finally. A few men in masks stealing jewelry. Hardly worth all this drama. Maybe not, Lisa agreed, taking the phone back, except for what's in the background. She forwarded the video to a specific timestamp and held it up again. There, reflected in a mirror behind the display cases, was a clear image of Mayor Coleman himself standing outside Hartman's Jewelry in a heated discussion with the owner. I was checking on a special order for my wife, Coleman said dismissively, though a bead of sweat now traced its way down his temple despite the cool night air. At 2 in the morning, Lisa asked. The same night a shipment came in that never made it into the official inventory. I have the manifest, by the way. The ones that show what really came in versus what was reported. Coleman's face had lost all color now. What do you want? Kane stepped forward. What we want, Richard, is for you to deliver a message to your boss. The Iron Wolves are done being pawns, and Ms. Reynolds here is under our protection now. The mayor looked from Kane to Lisa and back again, clearly trying to assess whether this alliance was real or a temporary convenience. Finally, he straightened his jacket with as much dignity as he could muster. Pierce won't forget this, he said quietly. Neither will the network. They're not supposed to, Kane replied. He nodded to Vex, who stepped back, allowing Coleman and his men to retreat to their black SUV, parked farther down the overlook. As the vehicle's headlights disappeared around the mountain curve, Lisa turned to Kane. Protection, I don't recall asking for that. Kane's mouth curved in what might have been a smile. Call it mutual self-interest. You have information I have information you need. And it looks like we have common enemies. That doesn't make us friends. No, Kane agreed, but it might keep us alive. The ride back to Riverdale was tense with unspoken questions. Lisa had reluctantly accepted Kane's offer to return on his motorcycle, leaving her car to be retrieved by one of the wolves. The night air whipped past as they descended from the overlook, the town's lights growing from pinpricks to a sprawling grid below. Kane didn't take her back to her apartment, instead turning down a series of increasingly industrial streets until they arrived at a large warehouse with Kane custom motorcycles emblazoned across the front in stylized lettering. Heavy security gates rolled open as they approached. Your garage? Lisa asked as Kane cut the engine. Safest place in town right now, he replied, dismounting and offering her a hand that she pointedly ignored. The network will have people watching your apartment. Inside the garage was immaculate with half a dozen motorcycles in various stages of customization. Machines and tools gleamed under bright overhead lights. In a loft above the workshop floor was what appeared to be living quarters. Kane led her up a metal staircase to a spacious office overlooking the garage. One wall was dominated by windows, the opposite by a massive corkboard covered in photographs, newspaper clippings, and maps connected by red strings. A conspiracy wall that mirrored Lisa's own journal in disturbing detail. You've been busy, Lisa observed, moving closer to examine the board. 5 years of tracking the network, Kane replied, watching her reaction carefully. Started with small inconsistencies in local business dealings, followed the money to campaign contributions, real estate developments, police departmental changes. Lisa's eyes tracked across the photos, noting familiar faces. Mayor Coleman, Police Chief Harrison, various business owners, including Mason Hartman of the jewelry store. At the center, a photograph of Maxwell Pierce, CEO of Pierce Enterprises, shaking hands with the governor at a charity gala. And all this led you to rob a jewelry store? Lisa asked skeptically. Kane moved to a small refrigerator in the corner, retrieving 2 bottles of water. He offered one to Lisa, who took it after a moment's hesitation. The robbery was meant to secure evidence of money laundering, he explained. The jewelry store was receiving shipments of high-end pieces that never made it into inventory. Instead, they were recorded as cash sales to anonymous buyers. Clean money for dirty cash, Lisa murmured, understanding the scheme. Exactly. But what we found was bigger than money laundering. Some of the paperwork included shipping manifests for items that weren't jewelry at all. Coded designations, military-grade packaging. Weapons, Lisa asked. Worse, Kane replied. Pharmaceuticals. Experimental compounds not approved by the FDA. The network isn't just washing money, they're using the clean cash to fund something called Project Lazarus. Lisa set her water down untouched. And what does any of this have to do with Mike Thompson throwing a fight in Vegas? Kane held her gaze for a long moment, then moved to his desk. From a drawer, he withdrew a thick file folder and handed it to her. Thompson wasn't just taking a dive for a betting operation. He was being vetted. The network uses combat sports to identify potential candidates for Project Lazarus. Fighters who follow orders, who can take punishment, who have the right psychological profile. Lisa opened the folder with growing dread. Inside were medical reports, performance evaluations, psychological assessments, all for fighters who had competed against Thompson in the last 5 years, including her. They were recruiting, she said softly, the realization dawning as she flipped through pages of her own medical data, information that should have been private. Thompson was helping them find test subjects. Kane nodded grimly. Your championship fight was your audition, though you didn't know it. When Thompson reported that you were too independent, too questioning, they arranged your accident. The torn ACL that ended your career wasn't an accident at all. Lisa's head snapped up. That's impossible. I was there. I felt it happen. No one could have planned that exact moment, that specific injury. Not from the outside, no, Kane agreed. But with the right compound already in your system, targeting specific connective tissues, he tapped a page in the file detailing pre-fight supplements. Every fighter in that tournament received approved nutritional supplements, special formula for peak performance. The room seemed to tilt slightly as Lisa processed this information. Her career-ending injury, the devastating blow that had sent her into a spiral of depression and pain medication, had been deliberate, orchestrated because she wasn't compliant enough, because she asked too many questions about Thompson's increasingly erratic behavior before fights. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked finally, her voice steady despite the emotion churning inside her. "Because you're not the only one they've destroyed," Kane replied, "and because I need your help to stop them." Before Lisa could respond, the door to the office burst open. Vex stood there breathing hard. "We've got trouble. Earl's been attacked at the diner." The ride to Crossroads Diner took less than 10 minutes, but each second stretched painfully as Lisa clung to Kane's back, the motorcycle weaving through nearly empty streets at dangerous speeds. Red and blue lights strobed against darkened storefronts as they approached two police cruisers and an ambulance parked haphazardly in front of the diner. Kane barely waited for the motorcycle to stop before Lisa was off running toward the entrance, where paramedics were wheeling out a gurney. Earl lay strapped to it, his weathered face pale beneath an oxygen mask, but his eyes were open. When he saw Lisa, he reached out a trembling hand. "I'm okay, girl." He managed his voice weak but determined. "Just some broken ribs. Should have seen the other guy." Lisa took his hand throat tight with emotion and rage. "Who did this?" "Men in suits," Earl replied, grimacing as pain shot through him. "Asked about you. About the video. Didn't like my answers." A paramedic intervened. "We need to get him to the hospital now. You can meet us there." As they loaded Earl into the ambulance, Lisa turned to find Kane in quiet conversation with a police officer. The officer nodded and moved away, and Kane approached her. "Harrison's sending a patrol car to your apartment," he said, referring to the police chief. "Not that it will help if the network wants to get in." "I need to go to the hospital," Lisa said, her voice tight with controlled fury. "We both will," Kane agreed. "But first we need to stop at your place. Get anything you can't leave behind. You're not going back there after tonight." The drive to Lisa's apartment was silent, each lost in their own thoughts. Kane waited on his motorcycle while Lisa went inside, quickly gathering essential items. Her go-bag from the closet, the journal from beneath her mattress, a photograph of herself with her trainer from her fighting days, the only personal item she allowed herself to display. As she was zipping the bag closed, her phone rang. "Unknown number." She answered cautiously. "Ms. Reynolds," came a smooth, cultured voice she didn't recognize. "I believe we have matters to discuss." Lisa's grip tightened on the phone. "Who is this?" "Maxwell Pierce," the voice replied. "I understand you have been making quite a stir in my town." "Your town?" Lisa moved to the window, scanning the street below for any sign of surveillance. Kane remained by his motorcycle, alert but unaware of her call. "Riverdale, along with several other communities in the region, benefits from my business interests," Pierce said, "as did your former career before your unfortunate injury." The casual mention of her injury confirming Kane's revelation sent ice through Lisa's veins. "What do you want?" "Direct. I appreciate that." Mr. Pierce's tone remained conversational, as though they were discussing a business proposal over lunch. "I want the video, of course, in all copies. In return, I'm prepared to offer you a position with my organization. Your talents are being wasted serving coffee to truckers." "Not interested," Lisa replied flatly. "Perhaps you should consult with your friend Mr. Jenkins before declining. I understand his condition is serious but stable. It would be a shame if complications arose." The threat was unmistakable. Lisa moved away from the window, anger replacing fear. "If anything happens to Earl, the video goes public along with everything else I have." Pierce chuckled, the sound devoid of warmth. "You sound like Kane now. Always the noble crusader despite his many flaws. Did he tell you about his time with the network, about the men who died under his command?" Lisa faltered. What are you talking about? Ask him about Operation Blackwater, Pierce suggested. Ask him who really gave the orders that night. Then decide if he's worthy of your trust. A pause. You have until tomorrow noon to reconsider my offer. I'll be in touch. The line went dead. Lisa stood motionless in the center of her apartment, Pierce's words echoing in her mind. Operation Blackwater. Men who died under Kane's command. The implications were disturbing, suggesting depths to Kane's involvement that he hadn't revealed. From below came the sound of a motorcycle engine revving impatiently. Lisa shook herself from her thoughts, grabbed her bag, and headed for the door. Whatever Kane's past contained right now, he was her best hope for understanding what she was up against, and for keeping Earl safe. At the hospital, Earl had been moved to a private room on the third floor. A uniformed police officer stood outside the door acknowledging Kane with a nod as they approached. Inside, Earl lay connected to various monitors, his breathing shallow but steady. The doctor reviewing charts at the bedside looked up as they entered. Family only at this hour, she said, though without much conviction. We are family, Kane replied with such certainty that the doctor merely nodded and continued her assessment. 3 broken ribs, mild concussion, extensive bruising, she reported. No internal bleeding, fortunately. He's stable, but we're keeping him for observation due to his age and the Parkinson's. When can he leave? Lisa asked, moving to Earl's side and gently taking his hand. Day after tomorrow at the earliest, the doctor replied. He's sedated now, but should be more alert in the morning. She gave them a pointed look. 10 minutes, then he needs rest. After the doctor left, Lisa turned to Kane. This is my fault. Earl got hurt because of me. Kane's expression was grim. No, this is on the network. On Pierce. They're sending a message. Lisa studied his face, searching for signs of deception. Pierce called me. At my apartment, he mentioned something called Operation Blackwater. Said to ask you about it. Kane went very still, the scar on his face standing out starkly against suddenly pale skin. Pierce called you directly. He threatened Earl, Lisa continued. Offered me a job in exchange for the video. Told me to ask you about men who died under your command. Kane's gaze moved to Earl's unconscious form, his expression unreadable. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and tight, with controlled emotion. We should continue this conversation elsewhere. Lisa hesitated, reluctant to leave Earl unprotected. Kane seemed to read her thoughts. Harrison's assigned his most trusted officer to guard him, he assured her. No one will get to Earl tonight. They found a deserted waiting room at the end of the hall. Kane paced the small space while Lisa perched on the edge of a vinyl chair, tension radiating between them. Operation Blackwater wasn't a military operation, Kane began finally. It was a network project from 5 years ago, a proving ground for Project Lazarus. And you were involved, Lisa stated rather than asked. Kane nodded once, still pacing. Before the Iron Wolves, I worked private security for Pierce Enterprises. Elite team, all ex-military. We were told we were protecting proprietary research, innovative medical treatments that would save lives. But that wasn't true, Lisa prompted when he fell silent. Kane stopped pacing, looking directly at her. The treatments were experimental combat enhancers, drugs designed to create soldiers who could fight longer, harder, withstand more pain. The test subjects were fighters, mostly MMA and boxers who had washed out of professional competition. Desperate men willing to try anything for another shot. Like human guinea pigs, Lisa said, disgust evident in her voice. Exactly like that, Kane agreed. At first, the results seemed promising. Enhanced strength, faster reflexes, greater endurance. But then the side effects started. Aggression, paranoia, organ failure, and finally psychotic breaks. His voice dropped. One night, 3 test subjects broke containment, killed 2 researchers and a guard before we could contain the situation. Lisa watched him carefully. And after that, Pierce ordered the entire project scrubbed. The test subjects, the researchers who had witnessed the breakout, even some of the security team. Kane's eyes had taken on a haunted quality. I was ordered to lead the cleanup operation. Did you do it? Lisa asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Kane met her gaze unflinchingly. No, I refused. Instead, I helped as many people escape as I could. Got them new identities, scattered them across the country. Pierce has been hunting us ever since. The Iron Wolves, Lisa realized. They're not just a motorcycle club. They're the people you saved. Some of them, Kane confirmed. Others are people who've helped us along the way. People with their own reasons to want the network dismantled. Lisa stood processing this new information. It aligned with what she'd seen on Kane's conspiracy wall, with the protectiveness the wolves had shown toward each other. But it also meant Kane had been keeping significant parts of the story from her. "Why didn't you tell me this from the beginning?" she demanded. "Would you have believed me?" Kane countered. "Or would you have dismissed it as the rationalization of a criminal trying to justify a jewelry store robbery?" Before Lisa could respond, her phone buzzed with a text message. Unknown number, but she knew instinctively it was from Pierce. "Proof of my sincerity," the message read, followed by an image that made Lisa's blood run cold. It was a hospital room viewed from a security camera angle. Earl's room, showing the police officer stationed outside, slumped unconscious in his chair. "We need to get back to Earl now," Lisa said, already moving toward the door. They ran down the corridor, Kane quickly outpacing Lisa as they approached Earl's room. The officer was exactly as shown in the photo, unconscious, but breathing. Kane checked him quickly. Drugged, not injured. He reported, drawing a concealed handgun from beneath his jacket. "Stay behind me." They entered the room cautiously, but it was immediately clear they were too late. The bed was empty, the IV lines dangling uselessly. Earl was gone. "They took him," Lisa whispered, horror and guilt washing through her. "Pierce took Earl to get to me." Kane holstered his weapon and pulled out his phone. "I'm calling Harrison. We need to lock down the hospital, check security footage." He paused, noticing something on Earl's pillow, a small white business card with an address handwritten on the back. "What is this?" Lisa took the card, recognizing the address immediately. "It's the Sunset Assisted Living Facility, where Eleanor Miller lives when she's not at the diner." Her eyes widened in realization. "They're going after everyone connected to me." Kane was already moving toward the door. "Call the facility. Warn them. I'll get us there." The ride to Sunset Assisted Living was a blur of speed and fear. Lisa clung to Kane, the night air whipping past them as the motorcycle roared through empty streets. She had called ahead, but the night attendant had reported everything normal, though he'd promised to check on Eleanor specifically. Sunset was a modest single-story building on the outskirts of town, its curved driveway illuminated by soft landscape lighting. As they approached, Kane cut the engine, coasting the final 100 yards in silence. No emergency vehicles, no signs of disturbance, just the quiet hum of the building's air conditioning units. "Stay close," Kane murmured as they approached the main entrance. The door was unlocked, the small reception area deserted. A sign directed after-hours visitors to use the intercom, but there was no response when Kane pressed the button. "Something's wrong," Lisa whispered, tension coiling through her body. "The night attendant should be here." They moved deeper into the facility, past a recreation room with card tables and a television playing to an empty audience. The hallways were dimly lit for nighttime, the soft glow of safety lights casting long shadows along the carpeted floors. Eleanor's room was at the end of the east wing, according to the directory. As they approached, Lisa noticed a service cart abandoned in the middle of the hallway, cleaning supplies scattered as if left in a hurry. Kane drew his weapon again, signaling Lisa to stay behind him as they approached room E24. The door was slightly ajar, a thin line of light spilling into the hallway. Kane pushed it open slowly with his foot weapon raised. Eleanor sat in an armchair by the window, hands folded neatly in her lap. She looked up as they entered, her face breaking into a relieved smile. "Oh, thank goodness," she said, her voice quavering slightly. "I was beginning to think no one would come." Lisa rushed to her side. "Eleanor, are you okay? Where's the night attendant?" "They took him," Eleanor replied, distress evident in her faded blue eyes. "Men in suits said there was an emergency at the front desk. When he didn't come back, I locked my door, but then Earl arrived with another man. I let them in because, well, it's Earl." She looked around anxiously. "Where is Earl?" "He said he needed to use the restroom, but that was 20 minutes ago." Kane moved quickly to the attached bathroom, finding it empty. "When exactly did Earl arrive, Ms. Miller, and who was with him?" Eleanor's forehead creased in concentration. "Maybe an hour ago. The man with him was tall, well-dressed, very polite. Said he was Earl's doctor." Lisa exchanged a glance with Kane. "Did Earl seem different at all?" "Now that you mention it," Eleanor said slowly, "he was quieter than usual. And he moved stiffly. I assumed it was his Parkinson's acting up." Kane holstered his weapon and pulled out his phone, quickly texting someone. I'm getting Vex and two others here to secure Ms. Miller. We need to find Earl and figure out what game Pierce is playing. It's a scavenger hunt, Lisa said, suddenly understanding dawning. Pierce is moving Earl from location to location, leaving breadcrumbs for us to follow, testing us, or keeping us busy while he prepares something else, Kane suggested grimly. Eleanor looked between them, confusion evident on her aged face. What is happening? Is Earl in danger? Lisa knelt beside her chair, taking the older woman's hands in hers. Eleanor, we need to get you somewhere safe. Some bad people are trying to use you and Earl to get to me. Because of what happened at the diner, Eleanor asked, surprising Lisa with her perceptiveness. With that biker fellow? Yes, Lisa admitted. It's complicated, but Kane here is actually trying to help. She glanced up at him. His people will keep you safe while we find Earl. Eleanor's expression hardened with unexpected resolve. Those men, they left something for you, Zhao, said to give it to the waitress when she arrived. She reached into her cardigan pocket and withdrew another white business card. I didn't like the look of them, so I pretended to be more confused than I am. Lisa took the card, turning it over to find another address written in the same neat handwriting. The high school gymnasium. Kane looked over her shoulder at the card. Pierce is being theatrical, public locations increasing in size. But why? Lisa asked, frustration evident in her voice. What does he gain by this elaborate chase? Time, Kane replied, and a demonstration of power. Showing he can access secure locations, move people around the town without interference. A soft knock at the door announced the arrival of Vex and two other wolves. After a quick briefing, they took positions inside and outside Eleanor's room, with Vex herself staying at the elderly woman's side. We've got this, Vex assured Lisa. Go find Earl. Outside, Lisa paused beside Kane's motorcycle. This feels wrong. We're dancing to Pierce's tune, following his breadcrumbs, exactly as he planned. Kane studied her face in the dim parking lot lights. What do you suggest? We change the game, Lisa said firmly. Stop reacting and start acting. Pierce wants the video, thinks it's his biggest threat, but we have something more valuable. What's that? Information, Lisa replied. Your files on Operation Blackwater. My evidence of Thompson's fight fixing. Together, they paint a picture that could bring down the network, but only if we get them to the right people. Kane considered this, then nodded slowly. I know someone. Former FBI, now investigative journalist. Someone the network hasn't been able to buy or intimidate. He's been trying to build a case against Pierce for years. Then that's our play, Lisa decided. We get the evidence to your contact. But first we find Earl. The high school gym is the next stop Pierce has laid out for us. Let's not disappoint him, but let's be ready for a trap. The Riverdale High School gymnasium stood dark and imposing against the night sky. The parking lot was empty, save for a single black SUV parked near the main entrance, a deliberate signal that someone was waiting inside. Kane circled the building once on the motorcycle, looking for additional vehicles or signs of surveillance, before pulling up behind the science wing, out of sight from the main lot. Too quiet, he murmured as they dismounted. No security patrols, no additional vehicles. Could be remote surveillance, Lisa suggested. Cameras, motion sensors. Possible, Kane agreed. But Pierce prefers human assets. Easier to control, harder to hack. They approached the gym from the rear using a service entrance that Kane opened with surprising ease. Inside, emergency lights cast eerie blue shadows across the polished basketball court. The space was cavernous and eerily silent, the bleachers retracted against the walls. At center court, illuminated by a single spotlight from above, sat Earl in a wheelchair. His head was slumped forward, chin resting on his chest. Beside him stood a tall, elegant man in an expensive suit, his silver hair perfectly styled despite the late hour. Maxwell Pierce in the flesh, looking more like a distinguished CEO than the mastermind of a criminal enterprise. Ms. Reynolds, Pierce called, his voice echoing in the empty gymnasium. And Mr. Kane. Right on schedule. Lisa started forward, but Kane caught her arm, holding her back. Wait, he whispered. Something's not right. Pierce smiled as if hearing Kane's warning. Quite right, Marcus. Always the cautious one. He gestured expansively around the empty gym. No hidden gunmen, no ambush. Just a civilized conversation between interested parties. Is Earl okay? Lisa called, straining to see if the old man was breathing. Mr. Jenkins is merely sedated, Pierce assured her. He'll recover fully once our business is concluded. He patted Earl's shoulder with what appeared to be genuine affection. A remarkable man. Did you know he was once considered for Olympic boxing trials? Before my time, of course, but the network's records are quite comprehensive. Lisa and Kane moved forward cautiously, stopping about 20 feet from Pierce and Earl, close enough to see Earl's chest rising and falling, steadily confirming he was alive. What do you want, Pierce? Kane demanded. Enough games. Pierce studied Kane with the mild interest of someone observing an unusual specimen. What I've always wanted, Marcus: compliance, discretion, the smooth operation of my business interests without interference from well-meaning but misguided individuals. His gaze shifted to Lisa. The video, Ms. Reynolds, all copies. Then we can discuss your future with the network. I don't have a future with the network, Lisa replied coldly. And neither does Kane or Earl or anyone else you've threatened. Pierce sighed, the sound theatrical in the cavernous space. I was afraid you might feel that way. Kane's crusader mentality seems to be contagious. He reached into his jacket, extracting not a weapon but a small remote control. Perhaps a demonstration of what's at stake. He pressed a button on the remote. Instantly, Earl's body convulsed in the wheelchair, back arching, limbs rigid, a terrible choking sound emanating from his throat. Stop, Lisa cried, lurching forward only to be restrained again by Kane. Pierce pressed the button again, and Earl slumped back into unconsciousness. Fascinating technology, Pierce commented conversationally. Targeted electrical stimulation via subcutaneous implants. Painful but not permanently damaging unless the dosage is increased. He held up the remote. Which I'm prepared to do if we cannot reach an understanding. You're insane. Lisa breathed, horror and rage warring within her. On the contrary, Pierce replied, I'm extremely rational. Project Lazarus has the potential to revolutionize human capability, to create soldiers who can withstand incredible trauma, agents who can operate at peak efficiency under any conditions. The applications are endless and extremely valuable to certain government agencies who prefer to maintain deniability. While test subjects die from side effects, Kane interjected, his voice tight with controlled fury, while innocent people are manipulated and discarded. Pierce's expression hardened, the mask of civility slipping momentarily. Progress requires sacrifice, Marcus. You understood that once before your attack of conscience. He turned his attention back to Lisa. The video, Ms. Reynolds. My patience is not unlimited. Lisa's mind raced, searching for options. Earl was clearly rigged with some kind of remote-controlled device. Pierce held all the leverage. Or did he? The video isn't the only evidence, she said carefully. Kane has files on Operation Blackwater. Names, dates, details of what really happened. I have documentation of Thompson's fight-fixing operation, including financial transfers to network accounts. Pierce's expression didn't change, but Lisa caught a slight tensing around his eyes. A tell. And she continued, pressing her advantage. Copies of everything have already been sent to multiple secure locations. If anything happens to any of us, all of it goes public immediately. You're bluffing, Pierce said, though a note of uncertainty had crept into his smooth voice. Am I? Lisa countered. You've done your research on me. On Kane. Do we seem like people who wouldn't have contingency plans? She took a step forward beyond Kane's restraining hand. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to release Earl, remove whatever device you have implanted in him. Then you're going to leave Riverdale and never come back. Pierce's laugh was genuine but cold. That's not how this works, Ms. Reynolds. I don't respond to threats. I make them. He raised the remote again. Perhaps a longer demonstration will convince you of my seriousness. Before he could press the button, a deafening bang echoed through the gymnasium as the main doors burst open. Police officers in tactical gear swarmed in, weapons drawn, led by a grim-faced Chief Harrison. Maxwell Pierce, Harrison called, his voice amplified by a handheld speaker. You're under arrest for kidnapping, assault, and conspiracy. Drop the remote and put your hands in the air. Pierce's composure cracked, for the first time, genuine surprise registering on his aristocratic features. He looked from the approaching officers to Kane and Lisa, calculation evident in his eyes. "This isn't over," he said quietly, then carefully placed the remote on the floor and raised his hands in surrender. As officers moved in to secure Pierce, Lisa rushed to Earl's side, checking his pulse, his breathing. Kane joined her, examining the older man with careful hands. "There," Kane said, finding a small lump at the base of Earl's neck. "The implant. We need medical personnel here now." Chief Harrison approached after Pierce had been handcuffed and led away. "Paramedics are on their way." "How did you know to call me Kane?" "I didn't," Kane replied, looking as confused as Lisa felt. "We came alone." Harrison nodded toward the gym entrance where Vex stood with Eleanor Miller, who looked remarkably composed for a woman her age in the middle of such chaos. "Ms. Miller called the station directly," Harrison explained. "Said she had information about kidnapping and extortion involving the mayor. When she mentioned Pierce by name, I knew it was connected to the investigation we've been building." Eleanor made her way over to them, Vex hovering protectively at her side. "I may be old," she said with surprising firmness, "but I know how to use a telephone, and I know trouble when I see it." She looked at Earl with concern. "Will he be all right?" "I think so," Lisa said, relief washing through her as paramedics rushed in with a gurney. "Thanks to you, Eleanor." As medical personnel carefully transferred Earl to the gurney, Kane drew Harrison aside for a quiet, intense conversation. Lisa caught fragments about evidence, Operation Blackwater, and federal authorities. Eleanor patted Lisa's hand. "He's quite something, your biker fellow. Not what he seems at first glance." Lisa smiled tiredly. "No, he's not. None of us are, I guess." The elderly woman nodded sagely. "Second chances come in strange packages sometimes, dear. The trick is recognizing them when they arrive." Dawn broke over Riverdale Hospital in streaks of amber and gold, casting long shadows through the Venetian blinds of Earl's recovery room. Lisa sat in the visitor's chair, head propped against her fist, having refused to leave despite the medical staff's insistence. Her body ached with exhaustion, but her mind remained vigilant, cataloging every detail of the past 24 hours. Earl's breathing had stabilized after the doctors successfully removed Pierce's device, a sophisticated neural stimulator that had been surgically implanted at the base of his skull during his initial hospital stay. The technology was military-grade, unlike anything the local doctors had encountered before. They'd sent it to the state crime lab for analysis, though Lisa doubted they'd trace it back to its source. The network was too careful for that. A soft knock at the door jolted Lisa from her thoughts. Kane entered carrying 2 cups of coffee and a paper bag that smelled of cinnamon and sugar. He'd changed clothes since the gymnasium confrontation, now wearing clean jeans and a dark button-down shirt instead of his leather riding gear. Without the cut displaying the Iron Wolves insignia, he looked almost ordinary, save for the scar that marked his face and the watchful intensity in his gray eyes. "Any change?" he asked quietly, handing Lisa one of the coffees. She accepted it gratefully, the warmth seeping into her cold fingers. "Doctor was in an hour ago. Said his vitals are good, brain function, normal. They're keeping him sedated to help with the healing." She took a sip, surprised to find the coffee exactly how she liked it, with just a touch of cream. "How did you know?" A ghost of a smile touched Kane's mouth. "Noticed how you take it at the diner. I pay attention." Lisa nodded, unsure how to respond to this small evidence of his observation. "What's happening with Pierce?" Kane's expression hardened. "That's why I'm here. Pierce is gone." "What do you mean gone?" Lisa straightened, fully alert now. "Released on his own recognizance at 5 this morning. Judge Harmon signed the order personally." Kane's voice was controlled, but Lisa could sense the anger beneath. By the time Harrison found out, Pierce's private jet had already left Riverdale Airport. Lisa set down her coffee, a cold knot forming in her stomach. How is that possible? He was caught in the act of kidnapping and torture. Money, influence, the network. Kane settled into the second visitor's chair, his large frame making it seem child-sized. Judge Harmon's daughter attends an exclusive private school on a special scholarship. His wife's medical bills for cancer treatment were mysteriously paid in full last year. So Pierce just walks away. Lisa's voice rose slightly before she caught herself glancing at Earl's sleeping form. After everything he's done, Kane's expression was grim but determined. Not exactly. Pierce may have escaped local charges, but the evidence we've gathered has been sent to my contact at the Phoenix Tribune. Rebecca Chen, former FBI turned investigative journalist. She's been building a case against the network for years. Can she be trusted? Lisa asked, the events of the past day leaving her skeptical of anyone's motives. As much as anyone can be, Kane replied. She's refused bribes, survived 2 assassination attempts, and published exposés that have brought down corrupt officials across 3 states. The network hasn't been able to silence her. Lisa absorbed this information, trying to balance caution with the need for allies. What about Mayor Coleman, the police chief? Harrison wasn't part of it, Kane said, surprising her. He suspected something was wrong in Riverdale for years but couldn't prove it. When Eleanor called with specific allegations involving Pierce, it gave him the opening he needed. He paused. Coleman is another story. He's disappeared. House empty, office cleared out. Running scared, Lisa observed. Or being retired by the network, Kane suggested grimly. Pierce doesn't tolerate failure. They fell silent, the only sounds in the room the soft beeping of Earl's monitors and the occasional footsteps in the hallway outside. Lisa studied Kane's profile, the strong jawline, the scar that told of violence, survived the eyes that revealed more than he probably intended. She was still processing Pierce's claim about Kane's past with the network, trying to reconcile it with the man before her. Ask, Kane said suddenly, not looking at her. Whatever Pierce told you, whatever you're trying to figure out, just ask. Lisa took a deep breath. Were you really part of the network before the Iron Wolves? Kane nodded once, still gazing at Earl's sleeping form. Head of security for Pierce's Special Projects Division. Former military, looking for purpose, good pay. The perfect recruit. And Operation Blackwater. Now Kane did turn to look at her, his expression unflinching. A black site facility in northern Arizona. Testing ground for Project Lazarus. When test subjects died or became unstable, Pierce ordered containment protocols. In plain English, he wanted everyone who knew too much eliminated. But you refused, Lisa prompted. I refused, Kane confirmed, but not before following orders I should have questioned. His hands tightened around his coffee cup. 3 test subjects became violent, attacked staff. I led the security response. They were killed along with 2 researchers caught in the crossfire. You were doing your job, Lisa said quietly. Kane shook his head. My job should have been protecting people, not enabling their exploitation. After the incident when Pierce ordered the elimination of witnesses, I finally saw clearly what I'd become part of. His voice dropped. I got as many people out as I could. Staff test subjects, even some security personnel who weren't too far gone. Gave them new identities, scattered them across the country. The Iron Wolves, Lisa realized aloud. Some of them, Kane confirmed. Others joined later, people with their own reasons to oppose the network. We became a real motorcycle club as cover, but our true purpose has always been gathering evidence, building a case strong enough to bring down Pierce in his operation. Lisa considered his words, weighing them against his actions since their first confrontation at the diner. Why tell me all this now? Because you deserve the truth, Kane replied simply, and because we need to decide what happens next. Before Lisa could respond, Earl stirred slightly in his bed, a low groan escaping his lips. She was instantly at his side, Kane moving to stand behind her. Earl's eyelids fluttered, then opened, his gaze initially unfocused before settling on Lisa's face. There you are, he rasped, voice rough from the breathing tube that had been removed hours earlier. Knew you'd be here. Lisa felt tears prickling at the corners of her eyes, relief washing through her. How are you feeling? Like I went 10 rounds with Allie. Earl grimaced, attempting a weak smile. Did we win? Kane moved into Earl's line of sight. Pierce is gone for now, but we've landed some solid punches. The fight's not over, but round 1 goes to us. Earl's weathered hand reached out and Lisa took it gently. You 2 working together now, miracles do happen. Lisa smiled despite herself. Temporary alliance, circumstances. Sure, Earl said, clearly unconvinced. His gaze sharpened suddenly. Eleanor, is she safe? She's fine, Lisa assured him. Better than fine. She called the police, helped save you. She's staying with Vex and some of the wolves for protection until we're sure the network has backed off. Earl relaxed visibly. Good. That's good. His eyes began to drift shut again, the brief conversation exhausting his limited reserves. You be careful, girl. Both of you. Pierce doesn't forget. As Earl slipped back into sleep, Lisa and Kane exchanged glances. The older man's warning echoed their own concerns. Pierce was gone, but not defeated. The network remained operational, and now they had made themselves priority targets. "We should let him rest," Kane said softly, "and we need to talk strategy somewhere more private." Outside in the hospital parking lot, the morning sun had risen, fully bathing the world in harsh clarity. Lisa squinted against the light, her body reminding her that she hadn't slept in over 24 hours. Kane led her to his motorcycle parked in a corner space away from other vehicles. "Where are we going?" Lisa asked, accepting the helmet he offered. "Somewhere safe," Kane replied. "The garage isn't secure anymore. Pierce knows about it, has probably had it under surveillance." The ride took them out of Riverdale up winding mountain roads that switched back through pine forests. After 30 minutes, Kane turned onto an unmarked dirt road that seemed to disappear into the wilderness. Another 10 minutes of careful navigation brought them to a small cabin nestled among towering ponderosa pines, almost invisible from the approach. "Iron Wolf's safe house," Kane explained as they dismounted. "Off-grid, solar power satellite internet stock supplies. No paper trail connecting it to any of us." Inside the cabin was Spartan but comfortable. A main room combined living area and kitchen, with two doors leading off to what Lisa presumed were bedrooms. Large windows overlooked a steep valley, the town of Riverdale barely visible in the distant haze. Kane moved with practiced efficiency, checking security systems, starting coffee brewing, pulling supplies from cabinets. Lisa watched him, struck by the domesticity of these actions from a man she'd first encountered as a threatening biker gang leader. "You should rest," he said, nodding toward one of the doors. "Bedroom's through there. Clean clothes in the dresser. Might be big, but they'll do." Lisa hesitated, exhaustion warring with ingrained caution. "I'm fine. We need to plan our next move." Kane gave her a level look. "Planning works better with a functioning brain. You've been awake for over 24 hours, been through multiple confrontations, and nearly lost a friend. Take 4 hours, then we talk." Put that way, Lisa couldn't argue. Her body was running on fumes, her thoughts becoming increasingly sluggish. 4 hours, she agreed reluctantly. Then we figure out how to deal with Pierce. The bedroom was simple, a double bed with plain but clean linens, a small dresser, a chair by the window. Lisa checked the locks twice before allowing herself to collapse onto the bed, not bothering to change clothes or even remove her shoes. Despite her churning thoughts, exhaustion claimed her almost instantly. She woke disoriented, sunlight slanting through unfamiliar windows at a late afternoon angle. For a moment, panic seized her. She'd slept far longer than the agreed 4 hours. Then the events of the past days came flooding back, along with the realization that there was no immediate threat. She was safe, at least temporarily. The cabin was quiet as she emerged from the bedroom. A note on the kitchen counter in Kane's surprisingly neat handwriting explained his absence. "Checking in with the wolves, back by sunset, food in the fridge, sat phone if needed." Lisa found sandwiches wrapped in the refrigerator, eating mechanically while she explored the cabin. The security system was impressive: motion sensors, cameras covering all approaches, even what appeared to be a panic room concealed behind a bookcase in the main room. The Iron Wolves took their security seriously. A laptop sat on a small desk in the corner, and Lisa found herself drawn to it. A sticky note on the screen read, "Secured connection, password Silent Storm 24. Her old fighting nickname, plus what she realized was her jersey number from her MMA days. Kane had done his homework. Once logged in, Lisa found a folder labeled Phoenix Tribune on the desktop. Inside were copies of all the evidence they'd gathered: Kane's Operation Blackwater files, her documentation of Thompson's fight fixing, the video of the jewelry store robbery, and more. A timestamp showed the files had been uploaded to a secure server just hours ago. A separate document contained a message from Rebecca Chen, Kane's journalist contact. "Evidence received. Preliminary verification looks promising. Need 48 hours for additional sourcing before going to print. Stay secure. We'll contact through established channels when ready. RC, 2 days." They needed to stay off the radar for 2 more days until Chen could publish her expose. Once the story broke, the network would be scrambling to contain the damage, giving Lisa and Kane leverage they currently lacked. The sound of a motorcycle engine announced Kane's return as the sun dipped below the western mountains. He entered carrying grocery bags, looking more relaxed than Lisa had seen him yet. "You're awake," he observed, setting the bags on the counter. "Feel better." Lisa nodded, surprised to realize it was true. "Any news?" Earl's improving. Doctor says he can be moved tomorrow if necessary. Kane began unpacking the groceries, fresh produce, meat, more coffee. Vex reports no unusual activity in town. Pierce's people seem to have pulled back, at least visibly. That's what worries me, Lisa said, leaning against the counter. Pierce doesn't seem a type to just walk away. He isn't, Kane agreed grimly. But he's also calculating. If he knows about Chen's investigation, he's focusing his resources on damage control. He paused in his unpacking. I checked on your apartment too. It's been searched again more thoroughly this time. The network is looking for something specific. The original video, Lisa realized. They don't know I've already passed it to Chen. Kane nodded, which gives us an advantage. They think we're still gathering evidence, not that we've already deployed it. He resumed putting away supplies. I brought dinner ingredients. Figured we could both use a real meal. The domesticity of the moment struck Lisa again, this hardened biker, former special ops, alleged criminal, calmly arranging ingredients for dinner while discussing counter strategies against a powerful criminal organization. The incongruity almost made her laugh. What? Kane asked, catching her expression. Nothing, Lisa replied. Just not how I expected this week to go when I showed up for my shift at Crossroads. A hint of a smile touched Kane's face. Life has a way of taking unexpected turns. They worked together preparing a simple meal, grilled steaks, baked potatoes, a salad with fresh vegetables. The routine task provided a strange bubble of normalcy amid the chaos of their situation. As they ate at the small table by the windows, the setting sun painting the distant valley in shades of purple and gold, Lisa found herself studying Kane with new eyes. Why did you become a fighter? He asked, suddenly breaking a comfortable silence. Lisa paused, fork halfway to her mouth, surprised by the question. Control, she answered honestly after a moment's reflection. My childhood was unpredictable. Foster homes, some better than others. In the ring, everything was clear. Win or lose, it was up to me. Kane nodded as if this made perfect sense to him. And after, when Thompson destroyed your career, survival, Lisa said simply. Then revenge. I spent a year just trying to recover physically, another planning how to expose him. She set down her fork. What about you? After Operation Blackwater, why stay and fight instead of just disappearing? Kane was quiet for a long moment, his gray eyes distant. Redemption, maybe. I was part of something terrible. Helped build it before I tried to tear it down. The people I got out, they needed protection. A purpose. He met her gaze directly. And some debts can only be paid in full. Understanding passed between them, an acknowledgement of shared motivation despite their different paths, both seeking to right wrongs to balance scales that had been tipped against them. Chen needs 48 hours, Lisa said, steering the conversation back to practical matters. What's our play until then? We stay hidden, Kane replied. Keep Earl and Eleanor protected. Let the network waste resources looking for evidence we've already deployed. Lisa nodded, but something still bothered her. It feels too passive. Pierce won't just wait for the axe to fall. No, he won't, Kane agreed. He'll be working his connections, preparing counter-narratives, possibly even planning to eliminate Chen before she can publish. Then shouldn't we warn her? Chen knows the risks, Kane said. She has her own security protocols. More importantly, she has multiple dead man switches. If anything happens to her, the story publishes automatically with additional evidence implicating whoever might be responsible. Lisa considered this, impressed by the journalist's foresight. So we wait. We wait, King confirmed. And we prepare for what comes after. The story will damage the network, but it won't destroy it completely. Pierce has contingencies, shell companies, political protection at levels even Chen's expose can't reach. Then what's the point? Lisa asked, frustration edging into her voice. The point is to force him into the open, Kane explained, to strip away enough of his protection that law enforcement can actually touch him, to create enough public pressure that his political allies distance themselves rather than go down with him. Lisa nodded slowly, seeing the strategy. A first step, not the final blow. Exactly. Morning came with unexpected news. Kane's phone buzzed insistently at dawn, waking them both. Lisa had taken the bedroom again while Kane had slept on the couch, maintaining their security rotation. She emerged from the bedroom to find him staring at his phone, expression tense. Chen's story is going live today, not in 48 hours, he said without preamble. The network found out about her investigation. She's accelerating publication before they can move against her. That's good, right? Lisa asked, instantly alert. Gets the truth out faster. Maybe, Kane replied, unconvinced, but it means the network is in panic mode. Dangerous, and Thompson is in Riverdale. Lisa's heart stuttered. Thompson. How do you know? Vex spotted him checking into the Riverdale Grand Hotel last night. Pierce must have called him in as insurance. A cold determination settled over Lisa. This changes things. Thompson wouldn't be here unless Pierce was desperate. It's an opportunity, Kane agreed, surprising her at all, but also a complication. We need to move Earl and Eleanor to secure locations immediately. The network will be scrambling for leverage. They quickly formulated a plan. Vex and two other wolves would transport Earl from the hospital using a legitimate medical transport company owned by a former Blackwater escapee. Eleanor would be moved from Sunset Assisted Living under the guise of a routine doctor's appointment accompanied by wolves posing as medical staff. And Thompson? Lisa asked the question she'd been holding back. Kane studied her face. You want to confront him? It wasn't a question. Lisa nodded. He's the reason for all of this. My career, my life destroyed because I wouldn't be their puppet. Kane was silent for a long moment, then nodded once. We can use that. Thompson will be watching your apartment. If you show up there looking like you're retrieving something important, it creates a perfect distraction while we move Earl and Eleanor. Exactly what I was thinking, Lisa said. But you don't go alone, Kane insisted. And you wear a wire, carry a tracker. First sign of serious danger you extract. No heroics. Lisa agreed, though privately she had her own plans. This confrontation with Thompson had been years in the making. She wouldn't back down now. They reached Riverdale by mid-morning. Kane dropped Lisa 2 blocks from her apartment, their plan set in motion. Vex had already confirmed the medical transport for Earl was underway, with Eleanor's extraction to follow 30 minutes later. 10 minutes, Kane reminded her. Make it obvious you're searching for something, then head to the extraction point behind Crossroads Diner. Lisa nodded, removing her helmet. And if Thompson shows, stick to the plan, Kane said firmly. Do not engage him directly. Got it. Lisa lied, knowing Kane would object to her real intentions. This was her chance to finally confront the man who had partnered with the network to destroy her career and her life. Be careful, Kane said, his voice softening. He hesitated, then added, I'll be watching. Lisa walked the 2 blocks to her apartment building, senses hyper-alert. She felt exposed, vulnerable, but also strangely empowered. For years she had been hiding, plotting, living under an assumed name. Today she was Sarah Reynolds, again facing her past head-on. Her apartment showed clear signs of another search drawers, left partially open, books slightly misaligned on shelves. Lisa made a show of moving frantically around the space, pulling up floorboards, checking hiding spots that didn't exist, all for the benefit of whoever was watching. She was kneeling by the bed, pretending to retrieve something from beneath the mattress when her door opened. She didn't turn around immediately, hand moving to the small caliber pistol at her ankle. Hello, Sarah, came a voice she had once known intimately. Or should I say Lisa? You've been busy. Lisa stood slowly and turned. Mike Thompson filled the doorway, his physique still impressive, despite being past his fighting prime. At 36, his face showed the wear of too many fights and too many hard nights, but his eyes remained sharp, calculating. The champion who had once been her lover, and later her betrayer. Mike, she said, keeping her voice level. Long way from Vegas. Thompson stepped into the apartment, closing the door behind him. Pierce is very interested in a video you have. Something about a jewelry store. He moved with the careful grace of a trained fighter, maintaining distance, assessing. Said you might be more inclined to cooperate with me than with his men in suits. Is that what he told you? Lisa asked, feigning confusion. That this is about a video. Thompson's eyes narrowed slightly. What else would it be about? Lisa laughed, the sound brittle and cold. You really don't know, do you? You're just the muscle, the same role you've been playing since Vegas. She took a step forward. Since you threw our championship fight on the network's orders. A flicker of surprise crossed Thompson's face before he could mask it. Ancient history. You had your accident, career ended. Sad story, but here we are. Not an accident, Lisa said, watching his reaction carefully. A deliberate hit job. Because I was asking too many questions about why my boyfriend suddenly couldn't remember his training, why his performance changed drastically before certain fights. Thompson's expression hardened. You always were too smart for your own good, too independent. He gestured around the small apartment. Look where it got you, from championship contender to small-town waitress. Should have played along Sarah. The network rewards loyalty. Like they rewarded you, Lisa countered, making you their errand boy, sending you to intimidate women. That's what the great Mike the Destroyer Thompson has been reduced to. Anger flashed in Thompson's eyes, his hands flexing unconsciously. I still have a career, sponsorships, recognition. What do you have? The truth, Lisa said simply. And soon everyone will have it too. The Phoenix Tribune is running a story today exposing the Network Pierce Project Lazarus and your role in all of it. Thompson's face drained of color. You're bluffing. Am I? Check your phone. It should be hitting the newswire any minute now. Thompson pulled out his phone, keeping his eyes on Lisa as he scrolled through notifications. She could tell the moment he saw it, his entire body tensed like a predator suddenly realizing it had become prey. This is a mistake, he said, voice low and dangerous. Pierce will what? Lisa interrupted. Run, hide, throw you under the bus to save himself. That's already happening, Mike. Why do you think you're here instead of his usual enforcers? The realization dawned slowly across Thompson's face. I'm the fall guy. Lisa nodded. Expendable, just like I was when I wouldn't cooperate. Thompson's expression shifted from shock to rage. He lunged forward, but Lisa was ready. Years of training hadn't been forgotten. She sidestepped his rush, using his momentum against him, sending him crashing into the wall. He recovered quickly, turning to face her with newfound respect and caution. You haven't lost your touch, he said, circling her carefully. Unlike you, I kept training, Lisa replied, matching his movements. Even with a knee, the network destroyed. Thompson feinted left, then attacked right. Lisa blocked a counter, landed a solid strike to his solar plexus. He grunted, eyes widening in surprise. She wasn't just defending, she was fighting back. The confrontation that followed was brief but intense. Thompson had size and strength, but Lisa had speed and motivation. Each blow she landed was for something, her career, her identity, her future stolen from her. When Thompson overextended on a punch, Lisa capitalized, sweeping his legs and sending him crashing to the floor. Before he could recover, she had her knee on his chest, forearm across his throat. This is where you tap out, Mike, she said, breathing hard. The door burst open. Kane stood there, gun-drawn eyes, quickly assessing the situation. You're late, Lisa said, not taking her eyes off Thompson. Traffic, Kane replied dryly, lowering his weapon slightly. Earl and Eleanor are secure. Chen's story just went live. It's over. Thompson's eyes darted between them. Kane, Marcus, Kane, you're working with her. Kane ignored him, addressing Lisa. Police will be here soon. Harrison is already moving on the network's local operations based on our evidence. Lisa eased back, releasing Thompson, but maintaining a ready stance. What about Pierce? FBI has a warrant for his arrest. His private jet was detained in Denver before it could leave U.S. airspace. Thompson began to laugh, a hollow sound. You have no idea what you've done. The network isn't just Pierce. It's bigger, has deeper connections than you can imagine. We know, Kane said coldly. That's why Chen's story names names. Politicians, judges, business leaders. All of it. The network thrived in shadows, Thompson. That protection is gone now. Lisa stared down at the man who had once meant everything to her. It's your choice now, Mike. Go down with them or cooperate. Tell what you know. Thompson's eyes narrowed, calculating as ever. What's in it for me? A chance at redemption, Kane said. Something worth more than whatever Pierce is paying you. The sound of sirens grew louder outside. Thompson looked from Lisa to Kane, then back again. I want immunity. That's not our call, Lisa said, but cooperation counts for something. She stepped back, allowing him to stand. Your choice, Mike. One last fight or a new start. Thompson stood slowly, rubbing his throat where Lisa's forearm had pressed. Always were a better fighter than me when it counted, he said quietly. Even Pierce knew it. Why do you think they had to take you out? The admission, simple as it was, felt like closure. Not victory, not vindication, but something Lisa hadn't realized she needed until this moment. recognition of what had been stolen from her. Police officers entered the apartment led by Chief Harrison. As they took Thompson into custody, Harrison nodded to Kane and Lisa. "We've got a lot of cleaning up to do in this town, thanks to you two." "It's just the beginning," Kane warned. "The network has deep roots." "Then we'll dig deeper," Harrison promised. "Starting today." 6 months later, Lisa stood behind the counter at Crossroads Diner, now officially Reynolds' Crossroads, according to the newly painted sign outside. The morning rush was tapering off, leaving only a few regulars nursing coffees and reading newspapers. One headline still dominated national news. Network trial begins. Former CEO Pierce faces 32 federal charges. Earl emerged from the kitchen, his movements slower than before his ordeal, but steady. The Parkinson's remained, but his spirit was undiminished. "Order up for table 4, he announced, sliding a plate across the counter. Lisa delivered the food, pausing to refill coffee cups and exchange pleasantries with customers who had become something like family over the past months. The diner had become a different place, warmer, more welcoming, a true crossroads for the community. Eleanor sat at her regular booth by the window, knitting something colorful while keeping a watchful eye on the diner operations. At 76, she had refused to fully retire, insisting on maintaining her role as quality control manager, a position Lisa had created specifically for her. The bell above the door jangled. Kane entered, followed by Vex and 2 other wolves. They had traded their intimidating leather cuts for more subtle leather jackets, though the wolf insignia remained visible as small patches on their shoulders. The Iron Wolves had transformed to becoming legitimate security consultants, specializing in corporate whistleblower protection, a business that had boomed following Chen's expose. Kane took a seat at the counter, accepting the coffee Lisa poured without asking. Their relationship had evolved over the months, moving from wary allies to trusted friends to something neither had yet defined but both valued deeply. Pierce's lawyers filed another motion to dismiss, Kane reported. Denied immediately. "Thompson testifying this week?" Lisa asked. Kane nodded. "Full cooperation in exchange for reduced charges. He's naming everyone all the way back to the beginning." Lisa glanced up at the wall behind the counter. There, framed in simple black, hung her white apron worn slightly frayed, a small tear near one string. Beneath it, a small plaque read simply, "Some fights are worth everything." "You ever miss it?" Kane asked, following her gaze. "Fighting professionally?" Lisa considered the question. "Sometimes. The clarity of it, the purpose." She smiled, looking around the diner at Earl teasing a regular customer, at Eleanor correcting one of the young waitstaff's technique, at the community they had built. "But I found something better." "A new fight," Kane suggested. Lisa shook her head. "A new family." Kane's hand found hers on the counter, a gesture that had become natural between them. "Worth everything," he agreed, echoing the plaque's sentiment. Outside, Riverdale continued its slow transformation, healing from the network's influence. Inside Reynolds' Crossroads, Lisa had found what she'd been searching for since her career ended, not revenge but purpose. Not the past reclaimed, but a future built on her own terms. The apron that had once been a simple uniform, then a weapon, now hung as a symbol of that journey. From waitress to fighter to survivor to owner. From Sarah Reynolds to Lisa Mitchell, and back again, carrying the strength of both identities. Lisa squeezed Kane's hand once before moving to serve another customer. The fight against the network would continue. Pierce's trial was just the beginning, but for the first time in years, she was looking forward rather than back. And she wasn't fighting alone anymore.